Howdy, everybody. So we're going to get started again. I will do a little bit of talking, and then Guinevere will be up here to lead you through a hands-on exercise in contributing a PR. But first, before we get to PRs, there is a different level of contribution that you will generally start with, which is contributing by issue. Now, people are generally familiar with issues as bug reports, right? So that's obviously a new contribution. That actually, honestly, is a contribution. Because if you can come up with a really good problem statement for something that's broken, often it's actually harder to do that than it was to write the fix, because sometimes the fix will be like 2 lines of code, but somebody had to first figure out how it was broken and why. So that's one way to contribute. And so you can find, now the first hard part for you is figuring out where to file the bug against, right? Because most issues for code stuff will against Kubernetes. Issues against docs will go against website. And actually, the docs people make that super easy. But if you go to any page of the Kubernetes docs, there's a link at the bottom to file a bug against that specific page of the docs. Which makes it really easy to do that. File complete and detailed bug report, including labeling, which I will explain to you. And then the other important part is follow up. Don't file a bug that says, when I do this, and then this thing breaks, and then not respond to any comments on that. Does not make you friends, and more importantly, it doesn't get stuff fixed. So an example of a good bug report. This is a bit cheating because it's actually a bug report, in fact, filed by a Kubernetes major contributor. But also, like I said, you start with issues. So this is actually somebody who is a SIG lead. And how he's starting, he didn't just throw a bunch of code in. How he's starting is by filing an issue, explaining what's broken. And if you want to look at an example of a good one, right? So this person's provisioning existing Exerdish in a pod, and you set these switches, and this bad thing happens. And so he filed that issue, and then he followed it up by filing the PR. And they're both his, but the issue is very important project documentation for what was it he was trying to fix in the first place. So even if you are going to be writing the code or the documentation to fix the problem, it's often helpful for the project for you to start with an issue. And that actually comes to how issues are used within the Kubernetes project, which is we use issues as our way of tracking specifications for changes. So like, for example, one of the things I'm currently going through, we'll be going through labels later on, is I'm going through some label changes, things that we're going to change about what gets labeled for what. And that starts with a specification for an issue of, hey, we've been using this one label and it's really confusing people, and so we need to split it into these 2 other labels instead. And that operates through an issue. And so we do all these specifications and feature proposals, and those are issues. Now, the way that this works here generally is you start with an issue, you write the issue, and you submit the issue that proposes a change. However, we have something like 100 new issues a day opened against Kubernetes, something like that. So that's not enough. So start the issue, compose the issue, apply appropriate labels, CC on the issue any SIG leads or concerned developers that you happen to know about. I mean, don't spam people, but like if you are already involved with the SIG, you know who the leads are, you know, or you know who works on that particular thing. Like for example, if it was a bug with one of the bots that does GitHub automation on Prow and that sort of thing, you would probably CC Aaron on it. And then, yes? Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
Let me just come back here for confirmation. That's a different way than I'm used to it from OpenStack, where people don't get assigned, but people just grab through the list. So this is not happening in Kubernetes.
No, it does not run like OpenStack because we don't have the centralized dashboard that OpenStack uses. So, and here I'm not actually talking about assignment. So by the way, the way that you do this in GitHub is you put an @ symbol and somebody's GitHub handle after it in a comment. And then if this is something that is non-trivial, if this is something that needs attention, and you are not, and either you're not going to be the one to write the code or doc for it, someone else needs to do it, or alternately, it needs discussion, right? We need to make a change to the API, for example, might need discussion. Something is this sort of thing. I need to fix this performance problem, and I'm not sure it works for everybody, or it needs discussion. Then you want to raise it with the appropriate SIG at a meeting or on the Slack channel or on their mailing list or whatever, to make sure that this particular issue that people notice that it's there. Why? Well, because if you're a regular contributor to Kubernetes, you get something on the order of a couple hundred notices from GitHub a day. I think I'm up to like 800 or 900 personally. And so as a result, the GitHub event traffic is just not sufficient for somebody to notice something. And by the way, if anybody has a good solution to that problem, you can make a ginormous contribution to Kubernetes in the future. And then most decisions in SIGs, et cetera, for anything not super significant, operate by what we call lazy consensus, which is that if a couple people approve of it and nobody voices strenuous objections, then it goes ahead. Now, I talked about labels, and this is going to become more important once you go into the PR exercise. So we have an elaborate system of adding labels to issues and PRs in order to categorize them. And all of these labels, because the GitHub namespace for labels is flat, we use a prefix with a slash and then something else in order to create an effective taxonomy of labels. So when you file an issue, 2 labels are required immediately, which is a label assigning that issue to at least one SIG. You can also assign it to multiple SIGs. And that's SIG slash. And a label assigning it to a kind. Now, when you're assigning to a SIG, that's going to be the SIG. You'll see these labels. There's SIG and the SIG name, right? So SIG slash auth for SIG auth, SIG test infrastructure, SIG API machinery. Do be careful because some SIGs get referred to by a shorthand name that is not the same as the label. So just look at kind of what labels there are. And by the way, you will not have permissions to just add the label in the right-hand column in GitHub. You're going to be adding these labels through bots, which you will learn how to do in a minute. The second thing that's required is a kind label. A kind defines what the type of the issue is. What general thing are you reporting or hoping to accomplish via the issue? Is it a bug? Is it a potential new feature or change to a feature? Is it documentation? Is it a design doc? And that's generally used, like API machinery uses design all the time for, we're going to have this new interface for controlling this and such. Are you with, the testing group and you need to report a failing test to the SIG that's responsible for that test, or a flaking test? Flaking tests are tests that fail but not all the time. And they're the most annoying ones for that reason. And refactoring, et cetera, goes under kind cleanup. So those are the two labels that you need immediately. And if you don't put them in, the bot will remind you. And if you ignore the reminder, it will close your issue. So you need those 2 immediately. Now, there's a couple of other labels that will get added relatively rapidly later on. First of all, and this is the second area you can contribute to Kubernetes. You'll notice there are a lot of open issues against Kubernetes. If you just go to KK, you will see that there are currently something on the order, it's like 1,800 issues open. So one of the things that we need a lot is issue triage. We're getting started soon with sort of organized issue triage, but in the meantime, importantly, we have these triage labels. And so these are labels that are applied to close an issue because it has been triaged. So for example, if 6 people reported the same issue with the CLI, then we're going to close 5 of them as duplicates. If we ask the person for more information on the issue they filed, they didn't respond after 2 weeks, then it might get closed as needs information, et cetera. And if you end up volunteering to help out with triage, you'll use these labels a lot. Now, one of the things that's actually changing is, I said we're migrating labels. Right now, support is a kind. It will now be triage support. Why is that a closing label? Well, because we've already said we do not do user support via GitHub issues. If you need help with how do I use Kubernetes, then Slack, Stack Overflow, mailing lists, not GitHub issues. Next is priority issues. And these priority issues will generally be assigned by the SIG leads or in a SIG meeting. And this says how critical is this issue. Now, sometimes priority labels never get assigned. When you see these getting filed is when we're getting towards a release. Because then they become required and the bots bounce issues and PRs that don't have them. I would really, as somebody who's sometimes in charge of issues, I would really like them to be attached all the time, but there's a limited amount of nagging we can do people. But and then this is a hierarchy, right? Priority, critical, urgent means this is something that needs to be fixed immediately, right? You know, Kubernetes. If you send this command, Kubernetes crashes, right? Priority, critical, urgent, as opposed to priority backlog, which is something like, hey, the code for this is really messy and hard to read, and we ought to clean it up. And that's going to be assigned to priority backlog. It's something we ought to do eventually, but there's no particular timeline attached to it. And then sort of everything in between. Completely optional. So by the way, all the labels I've gone over before are actually there we go. In this hard-to-find subdirectory, there is a file that defines all of the canonical labels that apply to Kubernetes, and a lot of the other repos under the Kubernetes namespace. Like I said, repos have individual sort of foibles and differences, but these are the canonical labels that are supposed to be for the whole project. And so the labels I was giving you, aside from the SIGs where it matches the list of SIGs, is actually the full list of labels that are available to you because we're trying to limit this to a namespace. And these are all in this labels file maintained by Test Infra because they are in charge of the GitHub bots. However, some labels are kind of open-ended. The area label is there for you to inform in a SIG particular way the kind of specific thing that you care about. You're actually going to be using area labels in the upcoming thing, but there is no canonical list of area labels because each SIG defines its own. And so this is kind of freeform. So this will be a thing, like for example, you know, you might be in SIG network, but you're really filing a bug against DNS, and you're going to add an area DNS label because that's something that they use. But none of the other SIGs used area DNS. Now, here's a label that's broken from the perspective of most people, which is you will see a lot of issues with help wanted on them. And for some people used to GitHub, they jump in there, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to pick up one of these help wanted issues as a way to get started. Right now, that doesn't work because if you look at the majority of help wanted issues, they are help wanted because the issue, the problem they are trying to solve is a complicated problem that requires outside expertise or a tremendous commitment of time, rather than newbie-friendly issues, rather than first contributor-friendly issues. We are introducing another GitHub label called Good First Issue that we will try to use to label issues that are actually good first issues. But right now, do not assume that help wanted means good first issue. Help wanted simply means this is something that's acknowledged as broken, needing to change, new spec, and no one is working on it. But generally, no one is working on it for good reason. So, once you've filed your issue and that sort of thing, once you've got it all labeled, the important thing is to follow up. Don't go away. People will ask for additional information. People may ask you to try things. People might, if a doc gets updated, people might want to say, hey, read over this, and does it actually answer your question? And that is kind of critically important because if you file this issue and you go away, then chances are that fix will never get merged. So having gone over issues, we are then going to move into our sort of main event here, which is making contributions by pull request.
So not on mute anymore. Excellent. Okay. Yay, I've been really looking forward to this part. I'm going to give everyone about half a minute or so to get all their laptops set up and just get ready to do some live coding together. Well, coding, but I will walk you through one of the most basic GitHub workflow processes and bot response cycles that you can encounter in the Kubernetes repos. For starters, there we go. I would like you to go to, all right, so who here is unfamiliar with GitHub? Awesome. So, all right, excellent. That's great. We are just going to walk through everything from scratch. If you
One thing I will say is if you technically get stuck following along, I'm also here in the room. Raise your hand,
yeah, raise your
and I
hand
will go over to you.
And Josh can help you. Very cool. So what I would like for everyone to do is go and open a browser of your choice and go to github.com/Kubernetes/community. We've shown you parts of this site before. Let me know if this is too small. I can definitely make my display, make it bigger. So then I want you to go to contributors. And there are 4 folders. And the bottom one is the new contributor playground folder, which is really just made for you. So before we do anything else, there are some rules. We have been very graciously allowed this space in the Kubernetes community repository for actually opening real pull requests against it. So I would ask everyone to stick to this particular folder of the repository and really be responsible about this particular area of the repository. Don't worry. So the plan is that I'm going to go and pretend that I'm opening a pull request. Well, I'm going to open a pull request against this repository, and you can follow along and open a pull request as well as I go through it. Any questions? Everyone ready? Okay, very cool. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top right corner and fork this repository. I already have a fork of this repository, but you might not, so I'm going to go to my particular repository. When you contribute to the Kubernetes repos, you always want to fork any and all repositories to your own personal GitHub account. You will avoid a world of hurt and trouble. Do not try to clone the repository directly and then issue a pull request against it. It's not recommended. So then we're going to go ahead and clone, copy to your clipboard, and open a terminal of your choice. This one I'm going to make bigger. I'm sorry. There we go. Let me clear that. There we are. So it's on the top. All right. Git, clone, and paste that. Oops. So this might take a while because it's a pretty big repository. So there we go. And now if I go and check, it's right in there in my folder. Now before we do anything else, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to check my remotes. Git remote. Oh, sorry. I got to check into the community folder first. I always do this. Who always does this? Am I the okay, thank you. Whew. All right, so here we are. And I'm going to check my Git remotes. And I only have one remote, and it is called origin, which is the Git default. Before I do anything else, what I want to do is go back to the Kubernetes community repo and get and copy that. Now, this is not a clone, but what I want to do is I want to set the Kubernetes repo as my upstream remote. So the way to do that is git remote set upstream. And you don't have to call it upstream. You can call it whatever you like. I prefer upstream. I always call it upstream. That way I don't get confused. And then the website that I'm pasting in, you can see now is Kubernetes/community rather than my GitHub account /community. So I'm going to go ahead. Whoops, did I do that? Git set remote. Git remote add, thank you. All right. Git remote -v. Okay, very cool. So now I have my origin and my upstream. This is going to be important for the workflow. And again, before I look at any code, I have my Git, what's that called? I have it set up so that my command line actually tells me which branch I'm on. Not everyone's terminal is going to look like that, but I'm assuming you're currently on the master branch. It's generally good Git practice to not do that, even though technically you are on your own personal branch. The reason you want to keep master clean will make sense later. You really just want to not ever code against master. So we're going to create a Git branch, Git branch checkout. No, wait a minute. Git. I'm trying to write it so that it's not my usual shortcuts and I'm confusing myself. So Git checkout -b, that makes a branch, and I'm going to call this branch KubeCon. And now I'm on a KubeCon branch. Now I'm going to look at the repo. I don't know use your code editor of choice. I use Visual Studio because it's the prettiest. So again, navigate to the contributors folder. Why is this not? Oh, you know what I didn't do? Interesting. I'm going to have to fix my git fetch upstream. Git remix. Master. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually pulling in the stuff that wasn't on my, all right, git push. I can walk you through this later. Okay, great. This should be there. All right, there it is. There's my new contributor playground folder. You will see an owner's file. Don't worry about the owner's file. Please don't open any PRs against the owner's file. And a README. So for my pull request, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new file. And I'm going to call it New contributors MD. I'm going to make it a markdown file. We're not going to actually do any code today. This is really just for the workflow. Did it just get dark in here? Okay. Very good. Hello, everyone. Please feel free to talk amongst yourselves if you need help or ask questions. I'm doing pretty well with the typing and talking at the same time. Great. Am I still on master? Git. Check out KubeCon. There we are. All right, so now if I check my Git status, I see that I have added a completely new file to the repository. So here's where I'm going to stop a little bit. And I'm going to encourage perhaps 1 or 2 people from each table to go ahead and actually go through with submitting a pull request, and everyone else can kind of watch what they're doing. The reason is I don't know how many people there are in this room, but in order for me to actually follow through and kind of show what's going on with some of these things, we don't really want 100 pull requests all at once. But you should still be able to at least see a lot of live flow, and all of you should be able to comment on the whole process and be reviewers as well. Originally, I hadn't expected everyone to come in with their CLA all signed, so this is fantastic. But yeah, so we don't really want to completely overwhelm this repository, but we do have permission to just experiment a little bit.
So elect 2 people at each table to do pull requests, however you want to do that.
Any questions so far? You should all know each other from the exercise earlier. At least that was the hope. All right. So, and again, you can create an entirely new document. Maybe introduce yourself, or maybe, I don't know, it can be fun. Or you can also just change one of the existing documents and do that. So I'm just going to create a new document right now. I'm going to add it, git add orders, new contributor playground. There we go. There we are, new file. And I'm going to go ahead and commit. And okay, so next part, the commit message. So ideally, your commit message will be a short title. This is a practice commit, followed by a blank line. And then this is a paragraph describing in detail what this commit is about. The reason that we want this is because there's nothing more frustrating than to walk into some repository and find something like, changed all the backticks. Why? Did it fix something? What was going on? What is the context? And then, and then it just becomes difficult. You have to read code. You have to guess at intent. A lot of people will require you to write 2 paragraphs. I think as long as you're being detailed, yet concise, your commit message is going to look pretty good with a title and a paragraph explaining. All right, now if I check my Git log, there it is. This is a practice commit together with my paragraph describing. The next thing I want to do is I want to push my branch to my personal GitHub repository. Do not push anything to the Kubernetes community repo yet. Push it to your personal community repo. And if I do git push -u, origin is my remote, and kubecon is my branch name. All right. Whew, my git config is not messed up. Cool. People following so far? All right, let me give folks a minute or so to catch up and decide if they're opening a pull request. Excuse me. All right. So if I go back to the Kubernetes community repository, and if anyone is getting confused whether I'm talking about the Kubernetes community repository or my personal community repository, let me know. I'm really hoping to keep the two separate. So this is where we go back to GitHub. And open this pull request. You'll notice that because of the way I formatted my commit message, the title line is already pre-formatted right here in the commit on GitHub, and my paragraph is already in the main box. So then there's some extra information right in here. Thanks for sending a pull request. If this is your first contribution, read our Getting Started guide. We're going to skip that just for today. If you're editing SIG information, follow these instructions. We're not doing that. It is polite to get rid of this text, even though it will not show up on your pull request, because it is a comment, but it's cruft, so I like to delete it. And then it's as simple as hitting this button, create a pull request. Da-da. Here we go. So this is where things start getting interesting with the Kubernetes robot. The first thing you see is that the robot is doing a whole bunch of things. What I didn't do was add a label of my own, but I can show you how that works in just a minute. So the robot added a size label. This lets any reviewer know how much work probably is involved in this pull request. Either that or how many files you are importing because they're dependencies. I mean, that happens too. Then the next thing that the robot is doing is it's requesting a review. Oh, hey, Josh, it looks like you're going to have to review a pull request. The next thing that happens is the robot is adding a label. And these labels get added because of the owner's file. Let me actually show you that real quick. Right here. Contributor playground, where is it? Oh. Oh, that's my, interesting. That's, ooh, I do need to rebase. You're totally right. Yeah. Very cool. And there it is. So, okay. The label gets applied because the owner's file is where the bot will look for information. This is also, by the way, how the bot automatically requested review from certain people. It's going to look into the owner's file and check who is a reviewer, who is an approver, and what the labels are. I only added people to this reviewer list that new and were available for being reviewers for this particular exercise. In the real world, what this file represents is a level of contributor that relates to the level of your knowledge and history of contributing. So a reviewer is somebody who has knowledge about that particular code base and can give helpful feedback and can go over a pull request and determine whether it's technically and factually a thing that we might want to merge and want to approve. This is where the language gets a little bit weird because an approver is actually one level above reviewer. An approver is somebody who, as a code owner, gets to decide not if it is technically functional, but if this is something that we want in the code base. Do we want this feature? Does this feature represent what the community wants? Does this match the direction we want to take? Let's go back to my pull request. The last thing the robot did, it did a bunch of things. It added the CNCF CLA, yes, because I did sign the CLA a while back. And then the robot is going to come talk to you. This pull request has been approved by, and that is blank because no one has approved it yet. Please assign additional approvers. And this line is something that newcomers are often like, what do you mean assign additional approvers? And the robot tells you, yeah, go ahead and assign additional approvers. These people are pulled from owner's files either at the level of your sub-project, your subfolder, or from other owner's files levels above them. I'm not going to assign error developer because he's not part of this workshop, I believe. Or is he? Wait, no, he is. Never mind, I'm confused. But he's not here right now. So this is the line where when I first saw it, I got super, super nervous because I didn't know who this person was on GitHub. I'm like, who is error developer? I don't know, or whoever it was at that time. So, very cool. Hello, KubeCon. So what I can do is I can comment and say, let's see, sorry about this. Let's actually look at the details first. It needs an approval from an approver in each of these files, just the owner's files. So what can happen here? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and assign somebody. Actually, I'm just going to assign error developer because, there you go. And so what's happening now is that right here on the top right corner, we'll see assignees. And what this means is that Ilya is going to get a message in his inbox that says, hey, somebody assigned you this pull request. Can you please review? Can you please approve? So I see that I've been getting some comments. Number one, is there an issue associated with this PR? This is a really good comment. Most of the time, you want to go ahead, if you find a bug, you want to go ahead and file an issue first before you sit down to working on it. The reason is that this makes people aware that there's an issue. Somebody might come and say, oh yeah, we're aware of this, here's a workaround. Or, oh yeah, somebody is working on this already. You can absolutely offer that you're going to work on the issue once you filed it. But in general, you want to file an issue first so you can have the discussion about whether the pull request is necessary. And then you would go ahead and submit a pull request. Every once in a while, when something is like a tiny, tiny little fix, it's okay to just go ahead and, you know how to fix it, it's a problem. It is definitely not completely impossible to just file a pull request and say, hey, I noticed this, here's a fix. But especially with bigger fixes or when a feature is involved, every time a feature request is involved, always file an issue first. Filing an issue is just much easier than then submitting a pull request. That's why we're skipping that for this walkthrough. All right, so hello everyone, please feel free. So now you see that somebody has commented on my pull request. All right, cool. I'm not going to comment back. I'm going to go back to my code and go ahead. Hello everyone. All right, and I'm also just going to go and make this into a title, maybe. There we go, get rid of that white space, save. So now again, I'm on my feature branch KubeCon, and I just made changes to my pull request. I'm responding to the review that I'm getting from Josh. I'm checking the diff. All right, I put in an extra line. Commit, let's see, let me just copy this. So I was brought up to always specifically, no, sorry, I can't commit yet, git add. To always specifically add the file by name. I'm sometimes lazy and don't do that, but I can't do that in front of an audience because, no, you all should add each file specifically. And then commit. And then I'm going to addresses review. Text is in 2 lines. And then for better reading, something like that, explain why we want this. Text has been separated. All right, now I'm going to push, and because I already have an upstream remote branch, I can just git push to that branch. Because, let's see, what did I do? Yeah, I rebased. Well, let's see. But I did rebase against this, so I'm a little bit confused. Let's see. There's nothing there. Let's see. I can go ahead. Oof, this is cool. I haven't run into this again. I haven't run into this in a while. What did I do wrong? Let's go back here. Oh, right, because I rebased. Thank you. Okay, every time you rebase, you have to force push. Let's see, git push -f. This should work. So, unfortunately, this is going to mess up my pull request. All right, so my pull request has been updated right here because I had an open pull request on this branch. The update directly goes to the pull request. I still have a review requested. Now, the next thing I need after I've addressed my comments is I need to have an approval label from a code owner, and I need to have looks good, an LGTM looks good to me label from a reviewer. The only people that can add an LGTM label as reviewers are Kubernetes org members. Who here is an org member? Somebody want to give me an LGTM on this? All right. And the trickier part is to get an approval from a code approver. That is what the bot is telling you. That's why the bot is telling you to assign certain people, because those are the people that have the power to give the final label. Oh, look, I got an LGTM right here. Ta-da! Who approved my pull request? Thank you. All right. All right, very awesome. So 2 people gave me an approval label. That's excellent. So my pull request is well on its way. It is technically correct, and it is ready to be merged. But what is missing is that we need somebody from an owner's file who is an approver right here. So we need either, well, I'm not going to self-approve my own pull request.
So should I go ahead?
People do it, but they shouldn't. Sure, go ahead. This is the part of your pull request process that can take longer. It's going to take, because your approver might live in an entirely different part of the world, and they might just not see it on their GitHub notifications. So what is sometimes worth the time is, pinging them again or finding them on Slack and saying, hey, I have an open pull request. What are your thoughts? Is there some way that we can talk about this? Is there something keeping this from merging? Do you have concerns? And often people do have concerns. It's a big community. Sometimes people have long discussions about things they feel strongly about. But a lot of the time, it really probably just means that they were busy and, people have to sleep, people go on vacation, things like that. All right. So the thing that now, after I collect all the necessary labels up here, the approved label, oops, you can actually click on the labels and see all of them. The CLA label, the LGTM label, then the bot knows that for this particular repository, I have collected all the labels necessary for it to run tests and pass. For folks who are not org members, they might need additional labels. So now I have successfully merged, and my pull request has been successfully merged. Full walkthrough. Let's go back to my slide, and let's kind of see what we did here. This is the GitHub Workflow. We're going to go to GitHub Kubernetes. In this case, we used Kubernetes community. First thing is fork the repo to the user GitHub account. Then we're going to git clone into a local working directory. Step 3, we're going to work on a feature branch. Work on the feature branch and commit, keeping in mind that we want to do good commit messages. Whoops. If you ever get interrupted, and we actually saw this because I didn't pull down the most recent version of the community repository, we have to fetch and rebase. And we can walk through that one more time if necessary. So, and then I commit to my local branch, then I push my branch up to my, right here, step 6, push it up to my GitHub repository, my personal GitHub. And after that, we create the pull request. And after that, it's interacting with your reviewers and with the bot commands. Now, I want to kind of see what happened with some other pull requests on this repository. So, who here has opened a pull request? A couple people? Yes. All right. I see lots of awesome labels, so I'm just going to go ahead and filter by that label. All right. Hooray. So, one label that is showing up on all of these, not just almost, all of these, is the red label that means needs OK to test. And this is an extra step that we put on pull requests by non-org members. But fear not. It is actually not that difficult to become a member of the Kubernetes org. You need to have a couple of pull requests. I think the number was 5 when I joined, but it might be more, it might be less, and it always just kind of depends. And then you need to have sponsors from the community, which does mean you have to go and attend a SIG meeting or find people on Slack. But in general, if you've submitted a few pull requests, you will know who reviewed your pull requests, right? So it's pretty easy to find them and ask them, hey, do you mind? I've been committing for a while. Do you mind sponsoring me for membership? And after that, it's a formality. Before you are a member, let me see here. Ooh, this one looks nice. So added link. And this one has me assigned as a reviewer, it looks like. That's my owl. Cool. Everyone, I have never been assigned as an approver to any kind of pull request. It's kind of awesome. I wish this weren't just for practice. All right, when navigating the README, you can now click to be redirected to the repository community. Okay, let's see. I'm going to look at that file. Subfolder, let's see. Can I view it? Let's see if that works. Awesome, totally works. Cool. So, let's see. So this looks good to me. This is a good idea. I like this. Let me go back here. There's one commit. All right. And what I need to do here before I can do anything else is going to talk to the bot. And this is going to be an example of me talking to the, and the way that you talk to the bot is you type a slash, that starts your bot command, and then I'm going to add the label OK to test in a comment, just like this. That's all it takes. And now, notice that the needs OK to test label, the red one, is gone. Right here. And now it is removed. And look what's going on right here. Now all the test suites that are applied to this repository are running. This is a fairly short test suite. Most of the other repositories have a whole slew of tests running against it. The reason being that the community repo is mostly documentation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, and I'm both a reviewer and an approver, so I'm going to add the approve label, just like this. But I'm going to wait for somebody else to maybe go ahead /approve, and there it is. Got updated just now. I'm going to let somebody else add the LGTM to it. So some of the things that you can do on your tables right now is to go ahead and find your tablemate's pull request. Go to pull requests, area new contributor track, and see what you think of their pull requests. Go ahead and comment on them. Go ahead and review. I'm going to give you about a few minutes for that. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah. All right. Let me mute this. All right, I have been notified that we should probably wrap up this part of the workshop pretty quick. But before I do so, I heard two questions, and one of them I heard twice, so I'm definitely going to address that. One question was, what is the procedure for squashing commits when you have a lot of commits in your history? When you've been working on it and some of the commits just look like, I'm going to try this again, or I have never done that, ever. Never. So the basic, we don't automatically squash commits. There's no button enabled on the GitHub, on the Kubernetes repositories. The basic concept is that everything that sort of content-wise belongs in one commit should be in one commit. We want to somewhat preserve the commit history. For example, if I change code somewhere and then add tests and then add documentation, I want those to be separate. You know, just this changes something, and this adds a function, this adds tests for that function, and this talks about what the changes are or how to use it from now on. Those should be, we want to keep that commit history, but anything that sort of reflects your workflow should be squashed into those commits. If you have a really, really small commit, like, you know, add a welcome message right here, that's, you know, clearly just one single commit, and that's fine. The other question that I had was, what exactly is the difference between, let's see, what's the difference between approved and LGTM? The difference is LGTM says this commit is this pull request is technically sound. I think this will work. I have looked at the code, and I'm trying to avoid the word approve. But I have looked at the code, and I believe this will work, and I think this is good code, and no more changes need to happen. The approval label is the label of a code owner. These are Kubernetes members that have a long history of experience with this particular code base. And they make more overarching decisions on, they would say, well, sure, the code works, it's technically sound, but I don't really think we need this feature, so I'm not going to approve it. Does that make sense? All right. There was some confusion, I wanted to clear that up. All right, everyone is welcome to have a little bit more fun with this particular repository for the rest of the day. But before I stop, this is a playground repository, and we really are only going to use it as part of this workshop. So please don't create noise by using this tomorrow because you wanted to check out how labels work or something like that. But yeah, all right. Any last minute questions? Yes. Ooh, yes, there are.
Come to our session on DevStats.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's move on, and let me free this back up. Game plan, test infrastructure. Thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
We had some last-minute changes with our presenters on this.
Yeah, Aaron's flight is delayed. My name is San, and I am from SIG Testing. So welcome everyone to KubeCon. So for SIG Testing, what our job is like interacting with the bot. Basically, as you see, like when you say a/LGTM, bot will add the LGTM label for you. That's what we programmed to teach the bot how to interact with GitHub comments. And more importantly, we are also maintaining the Kubernetes testing infrastructure, which means we want to make sure your PR pass all the tests. Your PR does not break like all the Kubernetes code base. Let me see. Let's try to go to a actual Kubernetes PR. How do I?
You want a browser?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, got it. Cool.
That works, right? Okay, so as you can see, this is the PR in Kubernetes/Kubernetes. There's one contributor make some change and send a PR. So if you scroll to the bottom of the PR, you will see a whole bunch list of all kind of tests we are running. Basically, we want to make sure your PR pass all the test and it's okay to merge. As you can see, there are different kinds of tests. First, very obvious, there's like failed test and pass test. And there are tests labeled with required, and there are tests like not labeled with required. So what's the difference here? So all the required tests are the tests you need to get to pass before your PR can be merged. Those are something we call merge blocking test. If you don't get the pre-submit to pass, your PR won't be able to merge. There's also a test like without a required label. For example, there's a GPU device plugin test. That test is also always been running against your PR, but it's not going to block your PR from merging because it's most likely a test against a specific feature. There's also a test marked as skipped. Those are tests only run when you change certain part of the file. For example, the pool Kubernetes cross build is only going to run if you touches like the Kubernetes build files. If you want to like change how we build Kubernetes, same as the GKE part. If you only change like GKE specific code, that test will be run. Okay, let's go back to the top. As you can see, for this PR, there are 2 tests actually are failing. I mean, one day when you make a PR to Kubernetes, you might also like see the same issue. Oh, geez, the test is failing on my PR. What should I do? Don't be panic. First, you can click into the details link. So this tool is called Guinevere. Basically, it shows the details of a single test run. You can see the test has succeeded 419 tests and also have like 3 failed test suite. And it took about 15 minutes to go through the test. Okay, how do I triage this? Like, I know my test is failing. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a little nice wrapped entries to tell you like, here's the test that has been failed. For example, for this one, looks like it's some issue with the Stackdriver logging agent. If you want to further dig into the test, you can click the artifacts link. Basically, those are all the artifacts we uploaded for your Kubernetes change. What we do is for the Kubernetes end-to-end test, we will clone your PR from Kubernetes, up a Kubernetes cluster, use the Kubernetes build from your PR, and we run all the tests, collect all the result, and as you can see, there are the build log, which is basically a log file for the current run of the test. If you want to dig further into it, if you head into artifacts there's a lot of junit_foo.xml. Basically, those are test entries. For example, those are like the test entry file generated by our E2E framework, basically to tell you like you have been running all these kind of tests, and there's also, you can see there's the E2E runner/master folder. You can find all the like logs from the Kubernetes subsystem. For example, Docker logs, etcd logs, and also like API server logs. If you like really want to find out what's going wrong with my PR, what did I break? From the top of your page, if you click on the link of your PR, you will see all the pre-submit jobs has been associated with your PR. I can see I got this about 13 jobs running and got 2 of them failing. At this point, you might still asking, is this failing like really associated with my PR? What if like someone else breaks something in other places? At this time, if you can click into the pull Kubernetes EDE GCE link. This might take a while. This tool is called TestGrid. Basically, it's a front end. Basically, displays a collective of all the tests has been running. All the same test has been running across different PRs. From here, you can see each single row here means a entry of a end-to-end test, and each test should be associated with a SIG. For example, if your test is failing, like by Stackdriver should ingest logs. If you like really don't know how to like debug this test, like what you did wrong with your PR, there's the SIG next to it. You can probably label your PR as like SIG instrumentation and find someone from that SIG to help you take a look like why your test has been failed. And if you click one of the cells here, it will bring you back to the Guinevere page. Let me see. Another thing I want to cover is, give me one sec. There's this retest command. Basically, if you see your test is failing and you feel like, hey, this might be a flake. As we mentioned, flake is something that it's not always failing. It's probably not the issue with your PR. And you can do a /retest here. What will happen is the bot will receive this /retest command, and it should re-trigger all the failing tests and to let it run again. This might take a little while. We will go back to this PR. A little nice page here that I want to show. We have a command help page. Basically, you might have the question like, I can like slash everything to the bot. How do we make sure the bot can understand my command, right? So basically, this page lists you like all the possible command you can issue to talk with the bot. For example, the top one is /approve, and if you click there's a little detailed description, like say what this plugin does. We also have a lot of fun plugins in the end. Like you can have like /joke or /mail. If I do let me try this. This is something we just implemented for fun. By the way, as you can see, after I /retest, those two tests have been re-triggered again, and we can wait for the result. And after I /mail, basically the bot will say, hey, let me give you a cat picture, and hopefully you have a good day. That's hopefully the basic things you need to know. If you have any curious how we really run the end-to-end test from the back, you're welcome to join the SIG testing deep dive session, and we will have a more in-depth discuss about the details about how do we run each end-to-end test. That should be everything I want to cover. Any questions? Yeah. You mean the command page? So we have a thing called prowl.kates.io. So that's a dashboard for where all of our test job, both pre-submit and periodics, they're running. And if you click into the command help page, then you can find all this list of command you can do. prowl.case.io. Yep. Thank you.
So next up we have Zach from SIG Docs, who's going to explain how contributing to docs is a little different because you're going to do it. Let's get the slides back up. Okay, is that your first slide?
Yes, it is.
King. So I'll say.
To advance.
You've got a clicker, or you can use the arrow key.
Hey, can you hear me okay? Excellent. So hi, I'm Zach Corleissen, Zachary Sarah on GitHub, and I'm here to talk about Kubernetes documentation. Anyone can contribute to docs. I am one of the leads for SIG documentation. And when I say that anyone can contribute to docs, I mean it literally. Anyone can contribute to docs. You do not have to be a member of the Kubernetes organization in order to contribute to docs. But contributing to documentation is a great path to org membership. If you are interested in becoming an org member, contributing to documentation totally counts. If you contribute substantively, at least 5 PRs to the documentation repository. Kubernetes website is the documentation repository. If you contribute at least 5 substantive PRs, I'll totally sponsor you for membership in Kubernetes, in the Kubernetes org. So this is how you find Kubernetes docs. If it is on the website at kubernetes.io, that's part of SIG docs. Everything that is published to kubernetes.io comes from Kubernetes website. This is the GitHub repository, Kubernetes website. So if it is published on kubernetes.io at all, you can find it by coming to Kubernetes website. And you can also find us on the Kubernetes Slack. We're SIG-docs. Super friendly, really easy to find us. So I'm going to go over briefly what it means, or how to work with docs, and a little bit about why it's different from every other Kubernetes repository. So first and foremost, we use Prow. We use the Kubernetes bot. So working with SIG docs, or working with the website repository, is the approval process for a pull request is identical to every other repository. You'll see an LGTM to denote technical accuracy, and approve is the command that allows a pull request to merge. So here's the main difference in working with Kubernetes documentation as opposed to any other Kubernetes repository. In order to update current docs, branch from master. I understand that in other Kubernetes repositories, master is, changes to master do not immediately go live. In Kubernetes website, pull requests that are merged to master immediately go live to the website. So if you are working on documentation for an upcoming release, for example, 1.11, then branch your pull request from release-1.11, for example. And that will not go immediately live. So this is the key difference. We do this backwards from every other repository in Kubernetes. And there's a reason for this. The reason is we release for specific releases, and we release continuously. So other repositories, you'll merge to master, and then particular commits will be cherry-picked into a release branch. Because we release continuously, because changes to the website are continuous and ongoing, we sort of cut out that step and just merge directly to master. So any changes made to master will immediately be published live. So right now, the current release for Kubernetes is 1.10. So any commits that you make to master, we will merge those commits into the release-1.10 branch. But that's work that we do on our side. That's the main difference, is just make sure that you are branching from master. If you want to have version-specific commits for 1.10, or if you notice something that needs to change right now, make a PR and branch from master. If you are working for a release ahead for release 1.11, if you're making feature docs for 1.11, branch from release-1.11. And we are really good about monitoring PRs, so if you make a mistake, don't worry. We'll totally jump in and help. We're pretty friendly and pretty easy to work with. So that's just the main difference to be aware of, is that we branch differently. Our branching strategy is different from any other repo. So just remember, you do not have to go through a giant formal process. If you see something that needs to be changed on the website, please open a PR. We will We will happily walk you through the process. We have contributors from all over the world, people who are not part of the Kubernetes org, who are regular contributors. So anyone, and please, I wish everyone would, contribute to Kubernetes docs. Thanks very much.